5, day 4, which is jealousy, or jealous, not jealousy, but jealous. And this was so good and eye-opening, because when I think of jealous, I think of how us humans are jealous, and what that means. You know, we get upset, we get angry, and we, not only that, but so like if we're in a relationship and our partner is then giving attention to somebody else, we get jealous and we get upset and we lose trust and all that stuff. But then we're also jealous when we see something that somebody else has that we want. I am so bad about that, right? Especially now that social media is around. There's people that I grew up with that have these lifestyles that I'm drawn to, essentially, and I'm jealous, right? We're all jealous. And so when it comes to God's jealousy, that's what I associate jealous with. However, that's not true. Well, it's true that I feel that way, but it's not. That's not what God's jealousy is. And this was so good, and I've been praying through it. I read it the other day, and I've been praying through it, and then something happened last night that was kind of like a punch in the gut almost. But because of social media, somebody reached out to me through a message about an interaction and something like a conversation, essentially, that in an interaction, I guess, that we had 20 years ago. I don't even remember that time, which is sad, but apparently and this person didn't say I caused them harm, but the way they explained the interaction that we had, to me, it was painful. You know, it was painful. And I didn't like who I was then. And the fact that I didn't remember it probably meant, I mean, I knew I was in like a deep traumatic state then, but, and I was angry and I was sad and, you know, but anyway, it made me realize how far God has brought me, right? And how he's so good, and what I was hoping for back then, and how angry and hurt and in pain I was back then, God has brought me so far. And all I could do last night is apologize to God and to thank him for opening my eyes, for helping me become a better person. And then this morning, I woke up thinking about it. I woke up thinking about how amazing God is. And then I prayed, and then I read this again, and I got so much more out of it than I did the first time I read it, right? And that's what we're supposed to do. But it made me realize, like, I have been taking my eyes off of God again. You know, I mean, I've been saying this forever, right? But it made me realize that keeping our eyes on God is the only thing that really will sustain us. And I've been searching for what that means and really trying to understand what that means. And last night and this morning, like, I got up at 4 o'clock. The dogs didn't wake me up. No, I don't think anybody woke me up until my eyes were open and I started moving around, and then the dogs started moving around. But I was like, I need to spend some seriously good quality time with God and like get back to where my heart belongs, because I've walked away from that, essentially. I've been so distracted by other things, and that is God's jealousy. That in itself is God's jealousy. Because after reading all this, I wrote, God will redirect our hearts towards him, not by arguing or or throwing a temper tantrum, but by nudging us or convictions or changing our hearts towards him. Because he knows. That's what this, so that was my note. But right next to it, it said, the Lord knows that he is the only thing that will satisfy our hearts. And that is so true. That is so true. In the scriptures that it has for us today, Exodus 25, you shall not bow down to them or worship them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the sin of the parents. Oh, I wrote that twice. For the sin of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me. And I thoroughly believe that that is the generational trauma that I have experienced. And I am so grateful to God for breaking that with me, because I don't want Alex to experience this pain that I've experienced. And having somebody reach out to me from 20 years prior to say that we had this interaction and this conversation that I don't even remember. And it was painful to not remember. And I felt so bad. And then I felt so sad about who I was and how much pain I was in. And there are so many things I have done in my life out of sheer pain. I remember I was with my cousins one time, and we had to take 2 cars. We were going to Six Flags. I think my father had just had a heart attack. So this was in the same time frame and age range that this person had reached out to me about. But it's not even associated with this. But we were in the car, and we were going straight, and a woman came out of the street, didn't stop, didn't pay attention, didn't do anything. And I believe it was my cousin in the car. I can't really remember. It had to have been, because my sister wasn't here, but my cousin was in the car driving, and they almost died. It was a horrible thing. And I screamed and hollered at that woman. I pointed my finger basically in her face about I look back at that in complete disgust of myself, because how I lack compassion. Who knows what she was going through? Who knows what she was going through? She could have been going through so much, but I still remember that to that day, and how ashamed I am of myself. But that's who we are without God. We're lost. We're lost. We're in pain. And so, anyway, it says here, his jealousy is also displayed in love, mercy, grace, and compassion, in rescuing sinners and bringing them to himself, which is 100% what happened with me. It says here, his jealousy is far different than the jealousy we experience with people. And that's what I struggled with for the last few days, because I didn't understand what that meant. Until again, God is so good that he allowed essentially that person to reach out to me, and all I could do was apologize to them. All I could do was apologize for that person that I was back then, and assure them I didn't mean them harm. And this is so good. This passage is so good, and I really think that I wrote it down. I wrote a lot of it down, because I need to read this every day. The jealousy of God is for our good as believers. The Lord knows that he is the only thing that will satisfy our longing hearts. He is jealous for his glory, and he knows that it is also what is best for us. We find meaning in lives that are lived for his glory and not our own. All other pursuits are empty and will leave us searching and longing for something more. God's jealousy for his glory points us back to the source of our joy, which is in him alone. Every moment of a believer's life should be lived for the glory of God. This is where joy is found. Every moment needs to be lived in God's word, with our eyes fixed on God, with following Jesus, with the blinders on, because that is the only thing that will satisfy us. It is the only thing that will bring us joy. And my like longing for a husband and searching for a husband, or searching for like a cabin in the woods and a farm or whatever, you know, I mean, all these earthly things are not going to satisfy me. They're not. And God is the only thing that will satisfy me. God is the only thing that will satisfy you. And it is beautiful. It is sad that we are such sinners that we've taken our eyes off of that. And I just feel like such a simpleton, a simple-minded person. Like, Satan just keeps dangling the exact same thing. That person that reached out to me, the exact same thing. Like, back then I was that person, and I don't want to be that person anymore. And at least I'm cognizant of it, and that is only by God's grace that I'm cognizant of it. Unfortunately, because we live in this world, we're always going to see the shiny object, always going to see that, and we're always going to react in pain. But with God, we can overcome that. We can turn away from that if we are just constantly in God's word, and we're constantly reading, and we're constantly learning who he is. We will constantly be learning who we actually are and were born to be before sin. And I mean, that's sanctification, right? And I'm sure you guys are listening to this and being like, you're late to the party, Bob, but this was so good for me to read. And I didn't even get to the questions because I don't even know what the questions are, to be quite honest. So I'm just so grateful that I'm so grateful. I know I say this all the time. I'm so grateful for this study. I'm so grateful to God. And I'm actually really grateful for his jealousy and his nudging. Like, here, this is what really will sustain you. And there's a lot of traffic for like 4:30. I mean, it's gotta be 5 o'clock now, but there's still a lot of traffic. Sorry, that's more than normal, but school's back in session. But anyway, so yeah, this says the jealousy of God compels us to live a life of service to our King. It moves us to live for his glory and not our own. Staying in the word is the only thing that will keep us. Otherwise, we'll just be miserable. And that's where I've been forever, you know? And that was proof. That message yesterday was proof. I have been miserable and in so much pain and in so much agony and lost, legitimately lost, so lost without God. And God's grace gave me Alex and woke me up, and I am so grateful. And it has been so painful. But that pain and that healing, I'm gonna cry. I'm just so grateful. I'm so grateful that God has like pulled me out of that, you know, and I take my eyes off of him and I forget, but he just keeps bringing me back, and I'm forever grateful. So anyway, I pray that you got something out of this, and this has helped you as well as me, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks.